All right, I'm gonna press go. Good luck, you
All
guys.
right. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
All right, 3, 2, 1.
All right. Well, thank you everyone for attending our Tuesday afternoon webinar, Donor Engagement Secrets for Long-Term Sustainability. My name is Matt, and I have Steve Roseman here from WEDO Charity Auctions.
Hey.
Yeah, and so today you're going to get a little bit of a education from us, hopefully, on donor engagement. And some tidbits, some years of experience, things like that we've seen firsthand, have been privileged to be a part of. We can just share some of those things and kind of walk you through it. We'll do a quick introduction. So, I'm founder and CEO of ClickBid. I live most of my career in software and technology and focus primarily on the nonprofit space. Um, and yeah, it's been an awesome privilege. And then Steve. Go ahead.
All right. Yeah, no, I appreciate it. So yeah, I think I've been in the nonprofit world now, let's see, at 43, 28, 15, 16 years now. Professionally, got my start, moved back from well, a lot of travel, but started a nonprofit in memory of my grandfather. At the same time, started We Do Charity Auctions, and had the pleasure to help a lot of nonprofits around the country. So it's been really fun. Like I said, 14 years now. Launched Donate right before the pandemic. So what is that? 6 years ago. Yep. Try not to talk about COVID anymore. So,
Yeah,
uh, but
yeah,
no, it's been fun. It's been rewarding. So I appreciate you having me on.
great. Yeah. So today we're going to talk. Here's our agenda. So importance of donor engagement, understanding that, some great event planning tips after all the years of experience Steve's had, those 14 years putting those events together, getting a little bit beyond the donor engagement, strategies for creating donor loyalty, and then I'm going to wrap it up with some, using technology specific to engaging donors, and then QA. If you do have questions, go ahead and drop those in during the presentation. We do have some people that monitor that and they can answer questions so that you don't have to wait too much longer. Or I'm sorry, you don't have to wait till the end, because then sometimes we run out of time depending on how long-winded we are. So, all right, we're going to get started, and I'm going to hand this over to Steve and take it from there. And just Steve, just let me know, and I'll switch the slides when you're ready.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, to actually jump directly into this, to take a step back before I get into this content, um, when we launched WeDo and we focused on our service model, it was really all about the stress and struggles I had when I was throwing my own events. So just as a disclaimer, my nonprofit, my staff, I'm right there with you, soliciting auction items, sponsorships. I mean, you name it. I've thrown every event except for I think a trivia night that I can think of. No reason. I just haven't done that. But I only bring that up because through my career, when I was starting my own nonprofit, I didn't know what I was doing, right? Um, my my very first event, no joke, my strategy was if I throw a fun enough party with an open bar, people got to give me money. Thankfully, it worked. I had a lot of good connections at the time, but I did not do very well in terms of developing relationships. It really was just the combination of throwing an event and trying to serve the mission. And very quickly, I identified how unsustainable that process was. Right, just inviting people to events at the time. My first year, I think we threw 11 events. And if you're on this call and you've produced even more than 4 events in a given year, you know how stressful and unintelligent that actually is to do, because you're never producing one event properly because you're running a gun the whole time. So nonprofit sustainability is really important to me, because as WeDo was developing and we were growing, part of our business model. We develop really strong relationships with our nonprofits and individuals that work with those organizations. Some are some of my best friends today. And so we're watching a group of amazing people serving an amazing mission only to drop the ball after the event, right? You throw this great event, you get people there, you work really hard to do that. And then because you're on to the next task already, whether it's another event or you're trying to serve the mission and raise money at the same time, for whatever reason, the ball gets dropped. And so that's essentially why Donate exists today. It's once the event's over, how do we cultivate that relationship in today's age, right? Online engagement, things of that nature. So sustainability is a really important thing for me. One, if you compare it to sales, right? My first company, I was running and gunning doing sales where I wasn't so much focused on retention, because if I can outsell my fall off, then we're fine. Which anybody who knows anything about business knows it's a lot easier to keep a client than it is to find new. And so once we really started to focus on building relationships with our donors instead of looking for the next new donor, right? Everything really changed for us. One of my most successful things I think I've ever done in fundraising, not nonprofit, but fundraising in general, I guess referencing money in relationships, is 3 years in to our main event. One of our top donors referenced that year. I wasn't going to get their names, until real close to the event, which that was actually the same every year. But he promised me that he was no longer going to bring employees. He was going to bring his friends because he believed in what we were doing. He saw the result of what we were doing. And now he was ready to bring his personal network into our world to help us with our mission. And so it was just a huge win because that we then connected with him properly. So once again, going back to that sustainability piece, and even on some of these bullet points here, catering to all, for example, that gentleman was, I was 28 at the time, he was probably 65. One mistake when it comes to a lot of the messaging out there and the way I was interacting with individuals. So I'm speaking from experience of what I did wrong, is I thought I had to create one message for everybody. And I was completely wrong. The way we interact with the baby boomer generation is very different than the way we interact with the Gen Z generation. So once we identified it's okay to create two messages, catering to two different generations, everything changed, right? And the reason why this bullet point is in the sustainability presentation piece here is because we have to realize that the baby boomer generation is moving on. They have the money, right? That's who supports our nonprofit world right now, but they're moving on. And when they pass, they're handing a large portion of financial gain, right, to a smaller generation. So if you're not already cultivating their children, their network, right, you're going to miss them because by the time you figure that out, they're already supporting another organization. So I recommend right now, if you're looking at your business model, your sustainability plan there, is make sure that you're also focusing on the younger population. If you have somebody that shows up to an event in their 20s, you better try to figure out why, because that's abnormal. Yes, they may not have the money now, but they'll have the money at one point. And I hate that we're talking about money so quick into the webinar here, but we all know we can't serve our missions if there's no money there. So one thing too, and this is really what we did with Keith to continue on here. I don't mean to beat a dead horse here, but for the sustainability and donor engagement, because we'll talk about that here in a second. You see right there on the slide called the Power of Three. If you've ever been in corporate America, they talk about this all the time for developing relationships on the sales side of things. But we've seen a lot of organizations, they'll bring in corporate partners, and then that person who brought that relationship to the organization leaves, right? Because we all know super high turnover rate in the nonprofit world. Well, when that person leaves, so does that corporate partner. So one of the things that I highly recommend that you focus on every time there's a new donor or a new corporate partner, try to focus on what I call the power of three, right? I didn't come up with this principle. It's just, I've learned it along the way. So one, right, is the individual who brought him into the relationship. So that's one power, if you will. The second is introduce that individual to another member of the organization. That could be a board member, that could be a volunteer, does not matter. Somebody that you believe will cultivate a relationship with that individual. And the most important is introduce them to another donor. By, introducing them to another donor, this solidifies the relationship, meaning they became friends under your umbrella. So not only have they met somebody that they now have a common interest, your organization, but the great thing about that as well, next time you have an event, next time you have a volunteer opportunity, next time you have a sponsorship opportunity, those two individuals are probably going to talk. Hey, John, are you going to be at so-and-so gala in September? Yeah, we already bought a table. Oh, I'll buy a table too. So by focusing on that power of three, on the sustainability side, one, you've developed a relationship already, but on the sustainability side, if that original connection leaves the organization, the likelihood of that corporate partner leaving is few and far between, because their relationship is no longer with one individual, it's now actually with the organization. So just to, I guess, wrap up the sustainability part of this is really to focus on the relationship itself, because it's going to be a lot harder to develop a relationship with somebody who has already seen what your mission is about than it is just chasing new people all the time, because there's no secret sauce out there to find random individuals that support your mission. So if you focus on the power of three, right there, you'll knock it out, as long as you're focusing on them genuinely and not looking at them as just another dollar. So hopefully that helps, with the sustainability part. Matt, would you mind jumping to the next one? Because I want to dive into a process, because a lot of people don't really have a process that they follow. Well, I guess this is more on the event tips, but I'll get to the other piece here in a second. But one thing when it comes to event planning, I think a lot of organizations will throw people in and forget to explain the full process of events. So this is just something I follow. I mentioned this before, don't overcommit to events. A good friend of mine who their event, I think, got to the point where they were doing about $1 million a year. They were doing, I think, 4 events per year. And what they decided to do is hyper focus on one that they knew they could perfect. They knew their audience wanted, they knew they can create a fun, engaging environment and raise the most amount of money. So once again, don't overcommit in terms of the amount of events that you're doing. Hopefully your organization doesn't put all their eggs in events. We saw that during COVID. Events are phenomenal for attracting new and solidifying relationships, but they should not be a do or die part of your fundraising. I think I had 5 organizations in the first year of COVID go out of business, which is unfortunate, because now there's a group of individuals that aren't getting served. Do your event right. Sponsors cover the cost. What I mean by that is set your budget, figure out what that is, go get sponsors to cover that amount. Then that way, that night, you get to say 100% of everything is going to the mission, which is huge. And it's not stressful. You don't have to worry about, are we going to sell enough tickets, right? And donors deserve quality. I've talked to Matt about this a lot, actually, and the team, and anybody who wants to cut corners, especially with technology. There's a lot of not so great technology out there, and I'm not saying that to boost what we're doing here, but there's just a lot of bad technology out there. Your donors are investors. They're investing in your organization. And so I know if I brought an investor to invest in my company, I'm not taking them to White Castle. I'm not showing up in sweatpants. I'm going to treat them like they should be treated. So we need to make sure that not only is the software that you're using, because we're talking tech, right? But everything, make sure that the theme of the event is appropriate. Make sure that your presentations are in a line of the event. And I'll talk about it before, but it's first impressions, right? So not only are they going to evaluate what they see there, but you got to remember they have a lot of options for a lot of other nonprofits, especially events. There's events going on everywhere in every city all the time. And there's what I call professional gala goers. You want those people. Those are the people with the money. Those are the people who bring corporate partnerships with them. They're not going to attend your event if you don't focus on the quality of your events there. Let's see here. Oh, just some cool tips here, or some things I've seen. Creating a tasting. I don't know. I always talk about the movie, Hitch, right? Where they have like a food tasting and they cook their own food. It's something unique and fun. I don't think I'm the bearer of bad news that sit down, black tie, plated dinners where you're sitting there for 2.5 hours at a table. Those are done. And if you're one of the fortunate ones that can still pull it off, that's amazing. But it's not what people want. People don't want to sit there for 2.5 hours and listen to a presentation on a Friday or Saturday night. And I apologize if you don't believe me. I'm just talking statistics here around the country. Colored themes, this might sound a little weird, but like Yellow Brick Road. It's like a Wizard of Oz, but everybody's dressed in yellow. A whiteout party, we've all seen that. Where some people just call it a white party. I call it whiteout because it makes me think of football. And wearing white shirts. I saw the Emerald Isle once again. I think that was a Wizard of Oz thing, but everybody was in green. It was really cool. This is one that I am going to take credit for. I created it when I was struggling and I didn't have any more time to throw an event, and it's perfect for our technology. I call it the non-event event. It's just a fun, simple way to raise money. It's you light up an online auction, call it 25 items. You don't need anything big. And then you promote the event. And part of the promotion is people pay you $25 to not attend your event. Okay. So the perfect time to do this, and that once again, it's just a fun way to get a $25 donation. People love silent auctions, so they can play there. But it's perfect to do this during the summer. You're going to struggle getting people anyway. People are on vacation, they're with their families, they're sitting at sports events, things of that nature. So it's just a great, fun way to generate some income during the summer. So just to finish off the event side of things, this is one that this is really important, is the connections in that room, right? I don't know if you've been to an event. Is the best way I can describe connections in a room at an event. Is we've attended, at least this has happened to me. So let's just go with my story. I've attended a lot of events that are awful. And I'm not just talking nonprofit events. I'm talking about events in general. Call it a birthday party, call it a networking event. You name it. I've been to a lot. There have been many a times where I have left that event. My wife has said, "Hey, how was the event?" I'm like, "Oh, it was great. Met so-and-so. We had a great connection. We're going to meet for coffee on Wednesday." When I really think about that event, the event was awful. But I created one connection, one person, and because of that, my first reaction was that was a good event. So I don't know if you can relate to that, but it's happened to me a lot, where if we can focus on that, it goes back to that power of three, right? If we can focus on that, it continues to build the sustainability and develop a better relationship with your donors. So I can tell you, when I'm hosting my own personal events, I have a single person that is actually dedicated to that task right there. She will go around and make sure that people are creating, that's stated wrong. She creates introductions amongst our attendees. Prior to the event, she will identify who people are, what they do for a living. gotta love LinkedIn. Even individuals that she knows already cares about a cause, or maybe they're there because of our mission. And she will make sure that they meet at one point throughout the night. It has been a game changer for us. So that is one single strategy that I can share that can literally change your financial gains from events. So hopefully that helps on some event tips there. Hopefully the next slide, let me look at my phone. I want to talk about, because I know we're on time here, or a little over time. Matt, can you go to the next one real quick? I just want to make sure. Yes. Okay. So this is one thing, and I try to do this just so it creates something in the, like a story, right? In the brain of how we can actually create a process. I just brought on a new marketing individual today, and it's hilarious how we butted heads right away because I'm not process driven and she's extremely process driven, and it's awesome. So we butted heads in a good way because I need somebody like that. But with my relationships, I didn't realize it, but I'm very process driven. Meaning, if we look at dating, for example, right? I was horrible at dating, like really bad. Thankfully, a friend, going back to what we were just talking about earlier, made the connection for that to happen. So I was very thankful for that. Got an amazing wife. But I bring that up because I look at donor engagement the same way I look at dating, right? There's different stages that we go through in relationships. And I'm using dating, it's all relationships, right? So if we look at stage one here, right? The attraction phase. Think of that in the dating world, like the first date, right? In the nonprofit world, we're looking at the first event. So if you think about that, first impressions are everything, right? Where's the location? How's the food? What are we dressed like? How are we speaking? Are we confident? All these things play a factor, right? So if you're trying to hit a home run and get, I don't know, Apple to be a sponsor or Google to be a sponsor, let's just shoot for the stars here. Does it equate? Will my event attract somebody like that? If the answer is no, you have to adjust, right? So the first is understand that first stage is attraction. Then we get to exploration. This is the fact finding. This is the learning. This is the, second, third, fourth date, right? You're starting to get a feel for each other. As it mentions on the slide here, sparking that connection. Is there something here? What makes this organization different? Then let's go with we're, an animal shelter, or, and I just think about that because I was thinking about my dog who unfortunately passed the other day. What makes this organization different than another? What makes your organization, why do I have more confidence in your organization versus another that has the same mission, right? Enlightenment. This is huge for me, and I think for kind of the breaking point of a relationship. It's building trust, and I put transparency. Trust, we all understand, right? I think people might misconstrue transparency in terms of connecting it with fear of loss, right? So one thing that my entire team, because we've spent a lot of time on that one subject, have identified the most successful organizations, not mine. I wish I could say that my organization raises more money than anybody we serve, but that's not true, right? We have a lot of things going on. We're serving a lot of people, but we have a lot of work to do. What we learned about transparency is, yes, part of it is making sure that you let people know what you did, right? If I donate $1,000, I want to know did you ever build a playground? I don't know. You never told me anything. So there's one aspect of transparency is sharing, right? And the what you achieved from what you said. The other is transparency in the negative. No, we did not build that playground, even though we did say if we raise 100 grand, we would build a playground. We raised 100 grand, we did not build a playground. But then you share why. we didn't foresee this thing happening. We had to allocate money over there. This came up. The contractor that we hired and trusted, they went out of business, and you explain the process. That right there will build the trust, because most people are not willing to share failures. But as long as you follow up with the failure with an action plan on how you're going to correct it and eventually achieve the goal, I mean, how can anybody argue with that, right? We've all failed at one point in our lives. I failed thousands of times at things. But as long as we're honest with ourselves and we're honest with our donors, and I know this sounds like really deep, but it needs to be that deep. If you're looking for donors for the next 20, 25 years, you need to get that deep. The reality is you're asking for them to fund you, that they can fund any other nonprofit in the world. They're giving you their hard-earned money, trusting that you're going to achieve X, right? So the fourth stage is decision. Because of what you've built in the first, second, third stage, they now have a decision that they're going to make. How is this relationship going to move forward, right? Here, you need to be okay with whatever that decision is, right? What I mean by that, they can say, yes, I want to support your organization. They're a multi-millionaire. They own a company that does $1 billion a year, and they give you $1,000. And you're like, what is this? You have so much more money. I hear nonprofits do this all the time, and it makes me cringe. They weren't grateful for the $1,000. All they did was switch to how can we get more out of that individual because we know he has more money. Wrong mindset. If we compare it to dating, you're not it. You're not the one. We can be friends. I want to be friends. Here, that $1,000 is showing here's my friendship, right? You have to be okay with it and be thankful that you now have a donor, right? So that is very important that you're okay with whatever decision, because the next stage is the fifth stage of commitment, right? I know a lot of friends who have eventually got married because they stayed on the path of the relationship. Now, not saying that's going to happen to all your donors, but if you can ever get to that fifth stage of commitment, it's a marriage. It's a beautiful marriage, right? Marriages aren't always easy, right? But if we look at it, comparing that is the journey you want to get to. You want to get to the unicorn. You want to get to somebody who's willing to donate, who's willing to volunteer and be an advocate. If you get that trifecta, man, you just get a couple of those in your organization, it's going to grow without you being involved. So I'm happy to share this framework. I've worked with a lot of organizations. It does take time. So like anything in a relationship, are you looking for something short-term or long-term? Long-term is going to create sustainability. Short-term, you're going to be chasing your tail for a long time. You're going to be stressed out all the time. You're always going to be wondering why one organization seems to sell their event out all the time, where you're hoping to just make it respectable. So I urge you to really think about this. And once again, I just refer to dating because everybody has dated in their life, whether you're good at it or bad at it. If you focus on the stages and you actually focus on the person, you'll be just fine. So hopefully that helps. Hopefully you got some little tidbits in there that might help with cultivating your donors after. Just know that I've done this and helped raise almost $1 billion doing it. And I don't say that as I personally, my organization, but I've worked with a lot of organizations collectively, and it's been a lot of fun. And the amount of lives that have been changed, and I still don't know how to say it, but even animals, and we've changed a lot in the world, and it's been a pretty exciting. So once again, Matt, I appreciate you having me on. Hopefully that helps someone. But yeah, if there's anything else. Oh, just talking about the donor loyalty, going back to that power of three. But no, I appreciate it.
Yeah. Yeah, no problem, Steve. I had a couple slides I wanted to cover on technology that kind of go in line with, when you're engaging your donors. Let's just go ahead and skip to it here. There we go. We're trying to keep donors engaged, and like Steve said, you've got this long-term trajectory, and it's going to take a lot of work. It's, just like, dating takes a lot of time. We don't get it right the first time. Even on the first date, we may think it's not working, but then, you just keep investing. And so take the technology out of this slide, and really we're just talking about keeping our donors engaged and keeping them informed about the things that we're doing as our cause, as compared to the things that this donor might be learning about other causes or other things, other just life things that are happening. So if we're going to use technology to keep donors engaged, then how are we going to use it? So the first thing I would say is you want to take a look at your lists of donors, whether you're starting up a nonprofit and you have maybe a small list or even a very large national organization. You're going to segment that list. It's the same process at any level. It's going to be tailored. You're going to tailor that list so that in a way that when you send a communication, it can be more poignant. So, for instance, if one way to break up your lists would be age, which would represent different generations. You can do people who have taken activities in your organization already, or people that haven't taken an action in your organization, and so on. Whether somebody's made a sponsorship or an underwriting, they've been to an event, they haven't been to an event, and sometimes you can change those lists to break things up a little bit. But the more importantly, when you're creating a communication, how can you be more specific than generic? Because we're going to reach out to our donors one way or another, because we want to keep them engaged. But if we can split them up and be more focused in our communication, it doesn't come off like an auction or a chat GPT formulated message or something you just kind of pulled off of the web. It's actually very specific. Technology can also do things like automating things. So for instance, when you work with a CRM, one of the things that I find really cool is that you can have that CRM surface things to you like an assistant would, or like another employee would do, saying, hey, you should really thank this person for giving this donation. You didn't send a thank you email in the last week, or this person hasn't given in 2 or 3 months. You may want to send them a message via email, via text, whatever their preference is. So it's using some automations, technology in that context of automating. And then donor data to send relevant updates, kind of in the same vein, but the software is using your data, what it knows about you, or about your donors, to give you hints and suggestions on how to be more focused and specific in those communications. Because again, you're trying to keep the donor engaged. That's our focus. And I keep going back to that because I'm trying to drive that. That's kind of the takeaways. It's easy to forget, whether you use technology, whether you handwrite a letter, whether you pick up the phone and call. You want to keep your donors engaged. They know less about you than you think they do most of the time. I had an organization that I'm working with now say, Matt, I feel like I've shown this video that we made to everybody 6 times and they're sick of seeing it. I even showed it at my Thanksgiving family get together. And then people came back at a function at the school that we're working with, and half the people in the room raised their hand as having not seen the video, and she was just completely blown away. So keeping donors engaged, that's the important part, but using technology, of course, to make it just a little bit easier. Now, we have obviously some tools that you can use to make the giving easy. I'm making a kind of a leap here from keeping your donors engaged to giving. I'm making the assumption that one of our goals is to inspire people to give, which isn't exactly a stretch, I don't think. This is how nonprofits generate income, by engaging donors and having those donors give. And so when that opportunity arises, we need to make sure that technology is not in the way. This happens a lot. In 30, 40 years ago, if an organization needed people to give, they would write a check, or they would give cash, and you would do it in very specific times at an event because it was the only time you could bring people together. Now we have the ability for people to give spontaneously. And I can't tell you in all the years that I've done this, how many times, I've been making a video, or I've been, working on a donor website, or a nonprofit website, and I show it to somebody and they say, "Oh man, that's really um, powerful nonprofit that you're working with. I would give to them right now." And I wasn't even trying to show it to them to get a donation, but what it did was it created that emotional moment, that pull on the heartstrings to make a donation. And so we need to make sure that when you tug on that heartstring, it's available to give, because there's a window of time where you will receive that donation, and then those windows close and you have to reopen it down the road. So making sure it seems like common sense, but mobile friendly donation forms. I know at ClickBid, the vast majority of people that use our platform are using it from a device, like a phone, maybe a tablet, but most of the time it's a phone. That, on a computer screen, we call it landscape, where you have, the screen size is more horizontal than it is vertical. However, on a phone, it's almost always vertical instead of horizontal. So when you give somebody a form, we don't want this form to just be, squeezed up in the corner, or hard to fill out, or just really complicated. We need it to be easy, 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 easy. So when you do work with donation systems, making sure that it's very viewable on the phone, because that's where the most donations that's where the donations will come from more often than not, because that's what they have in front of them when the emotional heartstrings are pulled. So recurring giving, this is something that has really taken off, at least, from my perspective as a software developer and a software company owner. There's a lot of push for donors to give on a recurring basis. Of course, we have the subscription model in everyday life. I mean, you really don't do anything anymore unless it's a subscription. If I go to a coffee shop, they want me to sign up for a monthly coffee thing, or, Hulu or Netflix, I have to sign up for monthly usage. And so it's becoming very popular that if I can get somebody to give, instead of giving me $200 now, if I can get them to sign up $50 a month, then that's going to be more money throughout the course of the year. Plus, it's more consistent. And it gives me, as the organization, the ability to be thankful 12 different times out of the year. So there's 12 different touches. So it's not just receiving the money, but when it comes in, I can also be thankful for it and show them my gratitude by sending them a thank you email, keeping them engaged with my organization. Because during that 12 months, I'm going to do a lot of things. I'm going to build a playground. I'm going to put a roof on the building. I'm going to try to, clean the carpet. All these different things that have to happen that I need help with as an organization, and I'm going to be able to make my donors aware of it. And then we have, one-click donations, digital wallet payment options. Honestly, probably about a year and a half ago, I took my driver's license and I put it inside between my phone case and my phone, and that's the only thing I carry around. I have my credit cards on my phone wallet, and I just tap everywhere. In fact, I would remember which gas stations in my community didn't do tap to pay, and I just wouldn't go there because I didn't want to carry my wallet, because I would lose my wallet. I'm very forgetful, so I would leave my wallet and have to drive back and go get it. So I said, sweet, now I can just put my credit cards on my phone, and I can now even use my watch to tap to pay. And so making sure that you give people as many choices as possible to make a donation as quick as possible, so that they don't have to feel that I'm getting out my wallet, pulling out dollar bills, or swiping a credit card. I can actually just tap and pay. It doesn't even feel like I'm paying for anything. So it makes it so much easier to bring those donations in. And then event fundraising platforms, obviously I'm a little bit biased here, but you have options. And I should be fair and say that you have options, and you want to make sure that when you work with them, that you have a seamless way to integrate auctions. Your job is to not spend the next 2 or 3 months learning how to use a software program. Just like when you hire a catering company, it's not your job to spend the next 3 months how to make the perfect filet mignon. You are going to pay them to create the perfect filet mignon, and you don't have to worry about it. The same is true when it comes to fundraising platforms. You don't want to spend so much time in those platforms that you lose the opportunity to stay at that 30,000 feet of event management. You want to be able to, communicate, reach out to donors. If you're talking to donors and you're using your event fundraising platform maybe half an hour a day or maybe a couple hours a week, then that's so much better than the opposite. Letting somebody else talk to your donors while you struggle over this platform. And then of course, technology and transparency. So, talking about technology this whole time, about how we use it to make sure that we're taking the best of technology to maximize donor engagement. We also want to provide that transparency because technology is so instant. There was a time when paper auctions, you wouldn't know for a half an hour, 45 minutes, 2 hours, maybe the next day, how much money you raised, who won something, how we're going to get those things to those people, how close we got to our goal, and did we break even? Did we blow the lid off? We couldn't celebrate that until maybe a day or two later, and then it would come through as an email or a letter, something like that. But now with technology, we can be completely transparent with people instantly. As soon as I press donate on my phone, or as soon as I raise my paddle in the air for a donation, I can see that data on screen instantly. And I have an auctioneer friend that all he wants on a screen is a really pretty background and a dollar amount. That's it. And I say, well, listen, I can give you, names, sponsors, fading in graphics, animations. He says, Matt, just all I want is a total. That's what people want. So even just the most basic piece of information, which is how much we've raised instantly, there's a lot of power when I'm in a room and I see a number on a screen and it's moving in real time up and up and up. And that is incredibly powerful because it's so instant. And of course, thanking donors in real time, that's great. Some charities like that. Some charities feel a little bit squeamish about it. I think if you use it, it's because you want to thank the donors, but it's also a chance to give people this kind of fear of missing out. Well, I didn't see mine. I want to see my name up there and I haven't seen it yet. So I better give something to see my name appear on the screen because my friend sitting next to me just put their name up on the screen. So there's a little bit of that. And I think that can create some fun competition, some fun fear of missing out, that kind of thing. And then if you take away the event real-time component, like Steve said, if you do a non-event event in the summer, let's say we're going to raise $5,000 or $15,000 over the course of July, which is a pretty kind of an off fundraising month because people are on vacation. From where I am up north, it's like one of 3 months where it's beautiful. So we're never inside. We're always outside doing something. But if you do a $5,000, $10,000 campaign over the course of a month, again, don't forget to use the tools you have, technology or otherwise, to make people aware of how much money you've raised. Getting close to the end of that goal, there's a lot of power in that. If I'm raising $35,000 and I'm at 28, that means I have $7,000 to go. That's it. I've already got 28. I only need 7. That can be a really great email of we are so much closer to our goal than the beginning of our goal. So let's get there. Let's do that. So making sure you keep making messages. And a lot of what I'm talking, even though I'm kind of wrapping it all up in technology, we're really just talking about making sure that you're transparent and communicating. Use the technology that's available to make it easier, faster, more consistent, more segmented. But the goal is to be engaged with your donors as much as humanly possible. All right. Well, I think we're going to give you about 15 minutes back in your day. That's the last of my information, and I don't know if I don't see any questions in the room. So I think we're good. We're going to make sure that this gets emailed out to everybody who signed up for it, so you can use it and just kind of hit some of those highlights. And we'll, I think maybe we have a AI transcript again using the technology that's available to us. So yeah, Steve, thank you so much for being here. It was a
Oh,
great
thank you.
opportunity to just talk about some of those ways that we engage donors, and just hopefully is a good reminder for people.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you
All
again.
right. Yeah, thank you guys. Have a great rest of your day and enjoy those extra 15 minutes.